All right, let's just jump right into this explainer and uncover why the smartest money on Wall Street is quietly moving way past software and chips and looking straight at the true physical foundation of the AI revolution. Right now, the whole world is just utterly captivated by these massive artificial intelligence names, right? We're constantly hearing about the newest software updates, the next-gen language models, and the absolute latest semiconductor chips. But what if I told you that institutional investors are already pivoting? They're looking right past all those algorithms and zeroing in on the raw, physical foundation that literally makes all of this possible. So today, we're going to explore a completely overlooked financial opportunity, one that sits right smack in the middle of artificial intelligence and nuclear infrastructure.
So that brings us to a really important question. What actually is the real bottleneck in this AI boom? Because while everyday retail investors are out there chasing these massive AI tech names, the actual urgent crisis happening behind the scenes is completely different. Initially, everybody thought the bottleneck for AI was going to be the chips. And then, well, we figured out that chips actually aren't the main problem at all. The real crisis facing artificial intelligence right now is basically being completely ignored by the general public. It's not memory, it's not coding, it is power. And specifically, we're talking about nuclear energy.
It helps to think of AI kind of like an iceberg. The public, they only see the very tip. The software, the apps, that little text box where you type in a question and magically get a brilliant answer. But beneath the surface, there lies this massive, secretive race for power generation. Wall Street absolutely understands a fundamental truth here. AI simply cannot survive without a monstrous increase in power. So while retail investors are getting distracted by shiny new software applications, all that smart institutional money is moving heavily into the unglamorous yet incredibly lucrative world of power, cooling, and heavy infrastructure.
To truly grasp how big a deal this is, we've got to look at the hidden mechanics. Picture this. It's 3 a.m. and you type a prompt into ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. You aren't just pinging a simple line of code somewhere. You are instantly activating massive physical data centers. Inside these absolute behemoths are thousands of interconnected GPUs, endless rows of complex servers, and high-intensity networking systems. Now, unlike a regular residential neighborhood where power demand naturally drops off at night when everyone goes to sleep, these interconnected GPUs, they're running 24/7 at absolute peak capacity. They create this industrial-scale power drain that our traditional infrastructure was just never, ever designed to handle. And because all that hardware generates an insane amount of heat, it requires equally massive cooling networks just to keep the whole place from melting down.
And it's the staggering scale of this electricity consumption that is forcing these tech giants to build infrastructure at an unprecedented, almost desperate pace. In fact, future AI data centers could consume as much electricity as Los Angeles or New York by 2035. Think about that for a second. We aren't talking about powering a small town. We are talking about the massive power demands of an entire major metropolis, funneled entirely into data processing. The faster these companies want to scale their AI capabilities, the bigger the data centers they have to build. But eventually, you're just going to run out of power to turn them on.
Which brings us to a frankly massive structural wall. We're essentially trying to plug these futuristic AI electricity monsters into a ridiculously old electrical grid. The American electrical grid is, quite frankly, Christopher Columbus old when you look at its legacy infrastructure. It was built for older homes, traditional factories, standard office buildings. For investors, this ancient grid is a massive liability. You simply cannot scale a multi-trillion-dollar AI software industry on grid architecture that gives you brownouts during a hot week in July. It absolutely requires constant, immense 24/7 power to scale up.
Now, you might immediately be thinking, but what about green energy? And sure, renewables like solar and wind are fantastic, but they have a fatal flaw when it comes to artificial intelligence. The sun goes down, the wind stops blowing, but AI data centers? They never sleep. They require a constant, unwavering baseline of power to answer those queries in the middle of the night. Because AI never sleeps, it consistently needs power over and over again without a single dip. And right now, nuclear energy is stepping up as the ultimate savior to provide that uninterrupted flow.
Look at that number right there on the screen, 37%. That represents the year-to-date stock surge of a company called X Energy, ticker symbol XE. They're a recently IPO'd company that has positioned themselves directly in the absolute center of this AI power race. Wall Street is banking incredibly heavily on nuclear right now, and X Energy is becoming a major focal point of this massive shift. But you might be wondering, why this specific company? Well, to understand that, we have to look at how they are completely reinventing the way we actually deploy nuclear power for industrial use.
So traditional nuclear plants, they're kind of notorious for taking well over a decade to build, suffering from massive cost overruns, and enduring just endless delays. They're massive, risky bets.
But instead of these giant custom-built gigawatt plants that literally take decades to permit, X-Energy uses what are called Small Modular Reactors, or SMRs. Their main reactor, the XE100, is a standardized, factory-assembled unit that drastically cuts down on both capital expenditure and deployment timelines. Because they're factory-built, they are way easier and faster to deploy. And here's the absolute kicker. They can be placed directly alongside industrial AI sites. They aren't trying to power an entire state. They're building dedicated power plants precisely where the AI physically lives.
And this modular, fast-deploying technology is exactly why Amazon just made a massive investment into X-Energy. And let's be super clear here. Amazon does not just step in and back just anybody. For a nuclear startup, securing a partnership with AWS isn't just about early revenue. It provides the ultimate market validation. It drastically de-risks the company for investors and drives massive long-term valuation. AWS data centers are handling these massive GPU clusters for AI training, and they're becoming absolute electricity monsters. Amazon realizes that to maintain their total dominance in the cloud computing space, they basically have to secure their own private, massive power generation.
And the sheer scale of this deployment plan is just staggering. Amazon and X-Energy are planning to deploy over 5 gigawatts of nuclear capacity. To put that into perspective for you, just one single gigawatt can power hundreds of thousands of homes, essentially a small city. Amazon is racing to deploy 5 times that amount, and they've even stated that they want more. That is an enormous amount of dedicated power being built by just one company. Think about what that means from a production standpoint, and more importantly, what it means from a valuation and revenue perspective for X-Energy.
Amazon is making this super aggressive move because they are locked in a fierce competition with companies like Microsoft, Meta, Google, and Apple. All of these tech giants are fully aware that supremacy in AI absolutely requires secured power. It's really simple. If you run out of electricity, your AI models stop training, your data centers overheat, and you literally lose the race. The AI demand is becoming so massive that the largest companies on Earth are right now in this quiet, high-stakes sprint to secure nuclear energy before their competitors do. This essentially turns secured baseload power from just a basic utility into literally the most valuable competitive moat in the tech sector today.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. What about safety? Historically, political pushback and catastrophic liability risks made nuclear energy practically uninvestable for a lot of people. People argued nuclear was too dangerous, too expensive, or just way too political to scale up quickly. But the sheer desperation of AI's power needs, combined with a really revolutionary new technology, is totally erasing those investor safety concerns. X-Energy is bringing a solution to the table that specifically addresses the exact liabilities that kept smart money away for decades.
That revolutionary technology is called TRISO fuel. Think of TRISO fuel basically as a safe inside a safe. It's an entirely different design from the old tech that people usually worry about. It's actually 10 times more powerful, but it's engineered with safety as its absolute core feature. Each tiny nuclear fuel particle is encapsulated in multiple, highly specialized protective outer layers. These layers contain the energy perfectly, but without stopping the fuel's efficiency. It's so wildly effective that many scientists believe TRISO fuel could become one of the safest forms of nuclear fuel ever created.
And financially speaking, this creates an incredibly lucrative dual revenue stream. X-Energy isn't just selling the physical hardware of the XE100 modular reactors to companies like Amazon. By acting as a major supplier of this highly coveted, ultra-safe TRISO fuel, they're locking in a massive recurring razor and blades revenue model that lasts for decades. They're providing the massive capital hardware up front, and then they're providing the recurring proprietary fuel required to actually keep the AI awake. It's a brilliant setup.
So the big picture here is crystal clear. We are actively entering a brand new energy supercycle. AI is no longer just a software play. It is a massive infrastructure, cooling, and power generation play. We are already seeing infrastructure companies like Bloom Energy, GEV, and CEG absolutely exploding in value as Wall Street's smart money heavily flows into the sector. X-Energy sits perfectly at this new intersection of AI and modern nuclear. These companies are the ones solving the real, physical bottlenecks of the artificial intelligence boom, which makes them prime targets for capital.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder today. As the rest of the world continues to just blindly chase shiny new AI apps and software updates, will you be looking beneath the surface? If artificial intelligence never sleeps, are you paying attention to the completely overlooked infrastructure companies generating the non-stop power that keeps this whole system alive?
Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will definitely catch you on the next one as we continue to break down the unseen forces that are shaping our future.